On the flag bridge of the aircraft carrier Taiho at 3:30 in the afternoon of June 19th, 1944, a 57-year-old Japanese admiral watches his ship blow itself apart in a column of fire 300 meters high. The explosion proves catastrophic, and about 1,650 crewmen would ultimately lose their lives, as Taiho was lost later that day. He does not understand why, because 30 months before this day, they ruled the Pacific, from Hawaii to Ceylon, from Alaska to the coast of Australia. The Imperial Japanese Naval Air Force was the most feared naval air power the world had ever seen. They had shattered Pearl Harbor. They had torn apart Britain's Eastern Fleet. They had turned an entire ocean into their private lake. Then, in 48 hours on the 19th and 20th of June, 1944, they vanished. 600 aircraft, hundreds of experienced aviators, and many irreplaceable aircrew. 3 aircraft carriers, including the most modern warship Japanese industry had ever built. All of it in 2 days. And the man standing on that burning flag bridge, Vice Admiral Jisaburō Ozawa, aged 57, commanding the mobile fleet. The sharpest tactical mind the Japanese Navy had left is watching everything he prepared for come apart in front of him. His plan was technically perfect in every particular. Many of his carrier aircraft had a significantly longer combat radius than comparable American carrier aircraft. He really did find the enemy first. He had 9 aircraft carriers, the largest carrier force Japan would ever send into a single battle. He had the battleships Yamato and Musashi escorting him. He had everything. So why, when the sun goes down tonight, will an American pilot on the USS Lexington walk out of the ready room, laugh and say, "Hell, this is just like an old-time turkey shoot back home," a phrase that would follow him for the rest of his life? Why in 2 days will the Americans lose 30 aircraft, while the Japanese lose 600? And why, just 4 months from this exact moment, will Vice Admiral Ozawa himself be ordered to sail the remaining Japanese aircraft carriers out as empty decoys, with no planes, no pilots, only to die because there is no one left to fly them? The answer isn't in this battle. The answer begins 2 years earlier with a training decision no one in Tokyo dared admit was a mistake, with the finest naval aviators in the world being burned away over Guadalcanal, over the Coral Sea, in the long, grinding air battles that no one back home knew how to replace, with thousands of 20-year-old boys being pushed into cockpits with 100 hours of flying time, while their American counterparts had 500. This isn't the story of a battle. This is the story of how a military superpower dies while it is still fighting. And it begins with something no textbook teaches you. The most modern aircraft carrier in the Imperial Japanese Navy, the ship the Japanese called unsinkable, was not sunk by a bomb. It was not sunk by an aircraft. It was not sunk by any enemy at all. It was killed by a single order given by the Japanese themselves, issued 6 hours before this moment. An order that sounded completely harmless. And in the next 60 minutes, you are going to understand exactly what happened over the Philippine Sea in June of 1944, the day Japan's Naval Air Force died. Look at the map. It is the 15th of June, 1944. 4 days before the moment on the Taiho Bridge. 500 American ships. 125,000 American troops. They have crossed 1,000 miles of open Pacific and landed on the island of Saipan. Saipan is not another jungle rock. Saipan is the front door. The Marianas Saipan, Tinian, Guam, rotor sit 1,400 miles from Tokyo. 2 years, Japanese planners have told them themselves, the Americans would never get this close. That before the Marianas fell, there would be a decisive battle at sea. That battle has not come. Instead, the Americans have come, and they have come with everything. In Tokyo, Soemu Toyoda, 59 years old, Commander-in-Chief of the Combined Fleet, drafts the signal that will go out to every ship in the Japanese Navy. The fate of the empire rests on this one battle. He means it, because from Saipan, the new B-29 bomber can reach every city in Japan. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, Kyoto, every factory, every child. Lose Saipan and the war comes home. This is what Vice Admiral Jisaburō Ozawa is sailing to prevent. On the 13th of June, Ozawa's fleet slips out of Tawi-Tawi in the southern Philippines. 9 aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers. Escorting him are the Yamato and the Musashi, the 2 heaviest battleships ever built by any nation. His flagship is the Taiho, armored flight deck. The first Japanese carrier designed specifically to survive the kind of bomb hits that killed 4 Japanese carriers in 10 minutes at Midway. Ozawa is 57 years old. Quiet, respected. His plan has a name, Operation Ego, and on paper the plan is beautiful. Japan has real advantages. The first is range. Japanese carrier aircraft are built light, no armor for the pilot, no self-sealing fuel tanks. Fragile but longer ranged. Many of them can strike from significantly farther out than their American counterparts can reach. That range advantage is the foundation of the entire Japanese plan. The second advantage is the islands. Guam, Rota, and Tinian all have Japanese airfields. His aircraft can fly out, attack, land on those runways, refuel, take off again, attack a second time on the way home, and land back aboard their carriers. Shuttle bombing. It doubles the reach of his air groups. But there is a problem inside the Japanese fleet that Ozawa cannot solve, and it is invisible. The oil. Japan's oil position by the summer of 1944 has become catastrophic. American submarines have been sinking Japanese tankers for 2 years. To save shipping, the fleet has been anchored close to the oil fields of Borneo, and it has been burning Borneo crude oil, straight out of the ground, unrefined, volatile. A navy that has to burn raw crude in the boilers of its warships is a navy that has already begun to lose. And the consequences of that decision will arrive 6 hours after a single American torpedo strikes the side of the Taiho. Ozawa does not know that yet. What Ozawa also does not know is what has already been happening on the other side of the ocean, because the Americans have been watching him. American submarines are stationed off every exit from every Japanese anchorage. When Ozawa sailed from Tawi-Tawi, they saw him. When he turned east into the Philippine Sea, they radioed his position back to the American fleet. Ozawa believes he is invisible. He has already been tracked for days. The man receiving those submarine reports is a 57-year-old American admiral named Raymond Spruance, commander of the United States 5th Fleet. He is quiet. He does not shout. He is the man who won the Battle of Midway 2 years earlier by making the coldest, most calculating decision of the Pacific War, and then never talking about it. His orders now are simple: protect the invasion. If the Japanese fleet gets past his carriers, the transports die. The Marines on the beach die with them. The whole invasion collapses. Spruance does not command the carriers directly. That job belongs to another man, Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher, 57 years old, thin, sunburned. He wears a long-billed baseball cap turned backwards. His pilots call him Uncle Pete. They love him. Mitcher commands Task Force 58, 15 aircraft carriers, more than 900 aircraft, the largest concentration of naval air power that has ever put to sea. And Mitcher wants to attack. He wants to sail west and hunt Ozawa down. Spruance says no. He will hold his position. He will let the Japanese come to him. Because everything the Americans have built over the last 2 years is a machine designed to destroy anything that comes to them. It has 5 layers. The first is radar. Every American carrier, every escorting cruiser, every destroyer carries air search radar that can detect incoming aircraft at ranges well over 100 miles. The second is fighter direction. Deep inside each American carrier, in a darkened compartment, lit only by radar scopes, sits a fighter direction officer. He watches the plot. He calculates the raid's course, altitude, and speed. He vectors the American fighters to a position above and ahead of the enemy formation, with the sun behind them. Interception has stopped being luck. It has become arithmetic. The third layer is the aircraft. The Grumman F-6F Hellcat, faster than the Zero. 6 heavy machine guns, armor plate behind the pilot, self-sealing fuel tanks. A Hellcat can absorb damage and bring its man home. A Zero, hit in the same place, usually burns. The fourth layer is the guns, and inside them is one of the most closely guarded secrets of the entire war. The proximity fuse, a tiny radio transmitter inside every anti-aircraft shell. When the shell passes near an aircraft, the fuse detonates automatically. No Japanese pilot alive knows this weapon exists. The fifth layer, the one that matters most, is the pilots. An American naval aviator arriving in the fleet in June of 1944 had, on average, 500 hours of flying time. He has been trained by veterans who fought at Midway and Guadalcanal and came home to teach him. His Japanese counterpart has 100 hours, sometimes less, because 2 years ago, in the Coral Sea, at Midway, over Guadalcanal, Japan burned away its irreplaceable veteran pilots, and there was no rotation home to train the next generation. Japanese pilots flew until they died. By 1944, the replacement pilots in Japanese carrier air groups are boys. Brave, willing, they just cannot fly. Ozawa knows this. That is why he needs the extreme range and the island airfields. His pilots don't need to be great. They just need to fly out, drop their bombs, and land somewhere safe. There is only one problem. American strikes had severely damaged the island airfields and greatly reduced their usefulness. In the days leading up to Saipan, American carrier aircraft swept Guam, Rota, and Tinian. They destroyed most of the Japanese aircraft on those runways. They cratered the airstrips. They burned the fuel dumps. The second half of Ozawa's clever plan has already been quietly gutted, and no one has told him. He is about to launch the last generation of Japanese naval aviators on a one-way flight to airfields that can no longer support them. Everything he asked for he has been given. Range, numbers, surprise, none of it will matter. Because the one thing Ozawa cannot requisition, the one resource no shipyard can build and no factory can manufacture, is time. Time is what makes a pilot, and Japan has run out of time. Ozawa raises his binoculars. He turns to his flag officer. He gives the order. At 8:25 in the morning of the 19th of June, 1944, 69 aircraft roar down the deck of the Taiho and climb into the tropical sky. The greatest carrier battle in the history of the world has begun, and in 6 hours the ship Ozawa is standing on will be gone. 8:25 in the morning. The first Japanese aircraft leaves the deck of the Taiho. Then another, 69 in total. Zeros, Judys, Jills. They climb east into a hot tropical sun. Inside those cockpits are boys. Most of them are between 19 and 22 years old. Many of them have never seen combat. They believe they are flying toward a great Japanese victory. They are wrong about all of it, because just 100 feet below the surface of the ocean beneath them, an American submarine is watching. Her name is USS Albacore. Her captain is a 35-year-old commander named James Blanchard. Through his periscope, he can see the Japanese fleet spread across the horizon. And in the center of it, the biggest target he has ever laid eyes on, the Taiho. Blanchard lines up his shot. His fire control computer stalls at the worst possible moment. He estimates the solution by hand. He fires a full spread of 6 torpedoes. 4 miss. 1 is defective and runs off course. 1 is running straight toward the port side of the Taiho. And here, just after 8 in the morning, a young Japanese pilot named Sakio Komatsu, barely in his 20s, has just cleared the deck of the Taiho on the very last aircraft of the launch. He is banking to join his squadron. He looks down and he sees the wake, a white line drawn across the blue water, heading directly for the ship that gave him wings 90 seconds ago. Komatsu understands what he is looking at in less than a heartbeat. He rolls his aircraft over. He points the nose straight down. He dives into the torpedo. The explosion kills him instantly. It also destroys the weapon before it can reach the tie-ho. He is barely in his 20s. He gives his life for his ship. His ship will be dead by sundown anyway, because there was a second torpedo. No one saw it. No one had time to stop it. It strikes the tie-ho on the starboard side, just forward of the island. It jams the forward aircraft elevator. It cracks open the aviation fuel tanks below deck. But the damage looks minor. The tie-ho is armored. The list is slight. The fires are contained. Ozawa decides that his flagship can continue operations. She continues launching aircraft. She does not know that she is already dead, because below decks, gasoline vapor is escaping from the cracked fuel tanks. Invisible, odorless enough that the young sailors patrolling those spaces do not notice it. Heavier than air, pooling in the low compartments. The tie-ho is filling up with a bomb, and no one knows. While the ship dies quietly beneath his feet, Ozawa launches his first attack wave against the American fleet. 10 o'clock in the morning. On the radar screens of every American carrier in Task Force 58, the plot lights up. A raid, 60-plus aircraft. Bearing 265, range 150 miles. Loudspeakers shriek to life on 15 American carriers. Pilots run for their Hellcats. Catapults slam aircraft into the sky. Hundreds of American fighters are climbing hard, guided by fighter direction officers, watching the enemy formation crawl across their radar scopes. The Japanese wave arrives at the outer edge of American radar range, and they stop. They circle, because that is what they were taught. Japanese doctrine calls for the flight leader to gather his aircraft and give final instructions before pressing the attack. It is what a well-trained air arm did in 1941. In 1944, it is suicide, because those few extra minutes give the American Hellcats time to reach altitude, time to put the sun behind their backs. When the Japanese wave finally pushes east, they are met by an entire wall of American fighters diving out of the sun. 45 out of 69 Japanese aircraft are shot down before they get anywhere near the American ships. The few that break through fly into the anti-aircraft fire. Shells burst around them. Some of those shells have proximity fuses inside them, exploding on their own the moment they pass close to an aircraft. Only one bomb hits anything. It strikes the battleship South Dakota and causes minor damage. That is the total achievement of Ozawa's first attack wave. The second wave arrives at 11:07, 128 aircraft. It fares worse. And above the American carriers, a young Grumman pilot from the USS Lexington is about to have the 8 minutes that will define his life. His name is Alexander Vrashew. He is 25 years old. He sees a formation of Japanese Judy dive bombers below him. He rolls in. The first one burns and falls out of the sky. He fires. The second one explodes. The third. The fourth, the fifth, the sixth. 6 Japanese aircraft. 8 minutes. He lands on the Lexington with almost no ammunition left. He climbs out of the cockpit. He is asked what happened. He holds up 6 fingers. The pattern repeats across the entire American formation. Wave after wave of Japanese aircraft flies straight into fighters that are already above them. American pilots keep finding themselves in the position that every fighter pilot in history has dreamed of, and few have ever been handed enemy formations that fly straight and level, that do not see them coming. Because scanning the sky is a habit built over hundreds of hours of flying. These boys have not had those hours. The third wave, 47 aircraft, finds nothing at all. Bad position reports send them to an empty patch of ocean. The fourth wave, 82 aircraft, flies to the same empty patch. Some try to reach Guam to land. The Americans are waiting over Guam. Hellcats orbit the airfield. When the Japanese aircraft arrive, exhausted, low on fuel, wheels already down for landing, they are shot out of the sky, one at a time in the landing pattern. Some crash on the runway itself. By early afternoon, the Japanese Naval Air Force has been effectively destroyed as a fighting formation. Somewhere between 300 and 350 Japanese aircraft have been shot down. American losses are around 30. Aboard the Lexington, a young pilot walks out of the ready room. He rubs his face. He says the sentence that will follow this battle into every history book ever written. Hell, this is like an old-time turkey shoot. The phrase circles the fleet within hours. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. But here is what the nickname does not tell you. The Japanese pilots dying that morning were not cowards. They were not incompetent by nature. They were the sons of a country that had spent its professionals and had no way to make more. They were boys, brave and willing, sent out against the most sophisticated air defense system on Earth by commanders who knew they were not ready. What was happening over Task Force 58 was not a battle. It was an execution. Now come back to the Taiho. It is 3:30 in the afternoon. Below decks, a young damage control officer has a problem. He can smell gasoline. He does not know exactly where the vapor is coming from. He doesn't understand yet that the torpedo cracked the aviation fuel tanks, but he knows he has to do something. He makes his decision. He orders the ventilation system opened up. All of it, full ship. He wants to blow the vapor through the compartments and out into the air. He is trying to help. He is doing the exact opposite of what he should do, because instead of dispersing the fumes, the ventilation system carries them everywhere, into every compartment, into the hangar deck where fueled aircraft sit, into the engineering spaces where the boilers burn hot. The entire Taiho fills up with gasoline vapor. A spark, that is all it takes. The Taiho explodes. The armored flight deck lifts upward. The sides of the ship blow outward. The explosion doomed Taiho, whose crew later suffered very heavy losses. The most modern aircraft carrier in the Imperial Japanese Navy, the ship they called Unsinkable, is torn apart from the inside because a young officer who did not know better opened a ventilation system. Ozawa is thrown against the bridge structure. When he gets to his feet, his flagship is burning under him. He says he will go down with the ship. His staff refuses. They take him by the arms. They transfer him to a destroyer. Later they will move him to another carrier, the Zuikaku. For hours, during the largest carrier battle in history, the commander of the Japanese fleet is out of communication with his own ships. And while the Taiho dies, another Japanese carrier is dying too, 60 miles away. Around noon, 60 miles to the north, USS Kavala had done what USS Albacore had done at dawn. Her captain is a 32-year-old lieutenant commander named Herman Kostler. He raises his periscope in the middle of a Japanese carrier group. He goes to his recognition charts. He wants to be certain. He raises the periscope one more time. He sees the flag flying from the carrier's signal halyards. He describes it later in the simplest words a man can use. There it was, the rising sun, big as hell. The carrier is the Shokaku. She fought at Pearl Harbor. She fought at the Coral Sea. She is one of the most successful warships Japan ever built. Kostler fires 6 torpedoes. 3 of them hit. Fires spread through her hangar deck. For 3 hours, the Shokaku burns. Her damage control parties fight her fires with everything they have. It is not enough. Just after 3 in the afternoon, the Shokaku's forward magazines detonate. She breaks apart. 1,200 of her crew go down with her. Some of them had been aboard her at Pearl Harbor. They had come full circle. 2 Japanese aircraft carriers destroyed in a single day. Neither of them killed by aircraft. Both of them killed by American submarines. By evening on the 19th of June, the battle is over. In every meaningful sense. The Japanese have lost around 350 aircraft, 2 carriers. They're veteran flight leaders. The Americans have lost 30 aircraft. No ships significantly damaged. Now the argument begins. Micha wants to attack. He believes the crippled Japanese fleet is somewhere to the west. If Task Force 58 turns west right now and pursues through the night, they can catch what remains at dawn and finish it. He sends a request to Spruance. Spruance says no. He will hold his position. He will keep his fleet between the enemy and the Saipan beachhead. American naval officers will argue about those hours for the rest of their lives. The aviator's case is simple. The enemy fleet was there. It was beaten. It was allowed to escape. Spruance's case is also simple. His mission was not to sink carriers. His mission was to protect an invasion. He had seen Japanese plans, built on exactly the kind of division that would have drawn him away. He took the criticism for it. He never much defended himself. 4 months later, at the Battle of Leyte Gulf, another American admiral will face a very similar choice. His name is William Halsey. He is 62 years old. He is bold. He is aggressive. Halsey will take his fleet north to hunt Japanese carriers. He will leave the San Bernardino Strait unguarded. A Japanese battle fleet will come through it and fall on a handful of American escort ships off the island of Samar. Spruance was criticized for being too cautious. Halsey was criticized for being too bold. The two decisions are still taught together as one of the hardest problems in the entire history of naval command. There is no clean answer. There has never been a clean answer. Spruance holds. The night passes. The Japanese fleet limps west. On the 20th of June, the Americans go looking for them. They search all day. Hour after hour, scout aircraft come back empty. Then, at just before 4 in the afternoon, a scout from the USS Enterprise finds them. 275 miles. That distance is a problem. It sits at the outer edge of what American carrier aircraft can do, and it is late in the day. By the time the strike arrives, the sun will be setting. By the time they turn for home, it will be dark. Many of the pilots aboard Task Force 58 have never made a carrier landing at night in their lives. Mark Micha stands on the flag bridge of the Lexington. He understands exactly what he is about to ask. The bill for this strike will come due in his own men. He knows it. He gives the order anyway. Launch 'em. Over 200 aircraft leave the decks of Task Force 58 in the space of 10 minutes. Chasing the sun west, they find the Japanese fleet just before sunset. They attack in fading orange light. Avengers from the light carrier below Wood put torpedoes into the aircraft carrier Hyo. She burns, she sinks. 2 Japanese fleet oilers are destroyed. Perhaps 65 more Japanese aircraft are shot down. Then the American strike turns east into the dark. The pilots have almost no fuel left. They have no experience of night landings. They have no certainty of finding their fleet at all in the black open ocean. Radio calls begin to come in. I'm ditching. I'm out of fuel. I can't find the ship. One after another, aircraft drop into the water. Mark Micha is on the bridge of the Lexington. He is listening. He makes a decision. It breaks every rule of wartime seamanship. It could get him relieved of command. It could hand the entire task force to a Japanese submarine. He does it anyway. 3 words. Turn on the lights. The Lexington lights up. Deck lights blaze. Searchlights point straight up into the sky as beacons. Destroyers fire star shells. 15 aircraft carriers and their escorts blaze into the darkness like a city rising out of the sea. In waters where Japanese submarines are known to operate, an American carrier task force has just deliberately made itself the most visible target in the Pacific Ocean, because his boys are trying to come home. Aircraft come in from every direction. Pilots ignore their assigned carriers and put down on whatever lighted deck they can find. Some crash on landing and are pushed off the side to make room for the next man. Some run out of fuel in the landing circuit and drop into the sea alongside the ships. Destroyers spend the whole night pulling men out of the water. Around 80 aircraft are lost that night. Almost none of them shot down by the enemy. They ran out of fuel. They crashed trying to land. But because Mitscher turned on the lights, because destroyers were positioned to pick men up, around 50 aviators die. Not hundreds. 50. If the fleet had stayed dark, that number would have been many times higher. Every pilot in the Pacific knew it. They called that strike the mission beyond darkness. That order was the single most popular one Mark Mitscher ever gave. His aviators never forgot it. Not one of them. But you have to be honest about what it cost. The men who did not come back that night were not killed by the enemy. They were spent by a decision to attack at a range known in advance to be beyond safe reach, in order to sink Japanese ships that might otherwise escape. Mark Mitscher made that trade deliberately. He would have made it again. When the sun came up on the 21st of June, the ocean was quiet. The Japanese fleet was gone. Ozawa was steaming west with what remained of his ships, running for the safety of Okinawa. The math of what had happened in 48 hours was simple, and it was final. Japan had lost somewhere between 550 and 645 aircraft. 3 aircraft carriers, the Taiho, the Shokaku, and the Hio. Japan lost hundreds of experienced aviators and many irreplaceable aircrew during the battle. The Americans had lost around 130 aircraft, most of them not to enemy action, most of them to fuel gauges running dry over open water in the dark. No American ship of any significance had been damaged. It was the most lopsided carrier engagement in the history of naval warfare. When it was over, Vice Admiral Jisaburō Ozawa offered his resignation. Admiral Toyoda refused it. There was no one else. 4 things killed the Japanese Naval Air Force in June of 1944. None of them was courage. None of them was luck. The first was the American air defense system. Radar, fighter direction, Hellcats, vectored to altitude with the sun behind them. Proximity fuses, built layer on layer over 2 years by unglamorous men whose names you will never learn. The second was the collapse of Japanese pilot training, a bill 2 years overdue. By the summer of 1944, the young men in those Japanese cockpits were not really pilots. They were boys who had been given wings and told what to do. The third was the American submarine force. 2 Japanese aircraft carriers went down on the 19th of June, and both were killed by torpedoes fired from beneath the water. The fourth was Raymond Spruance's discipline. By refusing to chase, he forced the Japanese to attack into the strength of his defense. Ozawa's plan was correct in every technical particular. His aircraft really did outrange the Americans in combat radius. His shuttle scheme really would have doubled his reach. He really did find the enemy first. Every technical assumption he made had been correct, and none of it mattered. Because the one thing he could not requisition, the only resource that shipyards cannot build and factories cannot manufacture, was the one thing Japan had spent. Japan had built the perfect battle plan for an air force that no longer existed. The Taiho was the most modern aircraft carrier in the Japanese Navy, built specifically to survive the kind of bomb hits that had killed the carriers at Midway. She was struck by a single torpedo, and the damage was minor. What killed her was a young officer trying to do the right thing. The most survivable carrier Japan ever built was destroyed by its own damage control, in a navy that had run out of experienced people at every level. Japan still had aircraft carriers after June of 1944. What Japan no longer had was anyone to fly from them. 4 months later, at Leyte Gulf, the Japanese Navy sailed its surviving aircraft carriers into action one last time. They sent them out with almost no aircraft aboard. Their entire purpose was to be seen, They existed to lure the American fleet away from the invasion beaches, because that was the only remaining use for a carrier without an air group. Admiral Halsey took the bait. He went north. The San Bernardino Strait was left open. A Japanese battle fleet came through it and fell on a handful of American escort carriers off the island of Samar. That is the direct line from this battle to that one. The reason Japan's carriers were empty decoys in October is that their aircraft and their air crews had been killed in June, and the man commanding that decoy force at Leyte was Jisaburō Ozawa. He had been given ships without air groups and told to be conspicuous. He carried it out. There is one more thing that came out of the Philippine Sea. Because when a nation runs out of pilots who can fly out, drop a bomb and come home. But the war continues, something has to fill the gap. On the 19th of October, 1944, at an airfield called Mabalacat in the Philippines, a 53-year-old Japanese vice admiral named Takejiro Onishi formally organized the first Special Attack Unit. He gave it a name from an old poem, the name of a divine wind that had once, 700 years earlier,